Why are you scared? The voice was small, calm, and completely out of place. Zaria Cole froze, her breath catching as she pressed herself deeper into the narrow back room. The men outside were still arguing, their voices sharp and impatient. She didn't answer. She couldn't. "Are you hiding from someone?" the boy asked again. She turned slowly and found him standing between stacked crates, no older than 6, dressed far too neatly for a place like this. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't confused. He just looked at her, waiting. "Yes," she whispered. "I am." "Bad people?" She nodded. The boy thought for a moment, like he was solving a puzzle only he could see. Then he stepped closer and said, very seriously, "Then you should marry me." Zaria almost laughed. "Marry you?" "Yes," he repeated, completely certain, "because family is protected, and if you're my family, no one will touch you." It was sweet, ridiculous, a child's logic trying to fix an adult's nightmare. So she smiled, humored him, and said yes. And if you're just joining this story, take a second to settle in, like, subscribe, and stay with us, because this one promise is about to change everything. She didn't know his name. She didn't know who his father was. She didn't know that in the world this boy came from, family was untouchable. And she definitely didn't know that by agreeing she had just tied herself to the most feared man in Korea's underworld. Zaria Cole didn't move after she said yes. The words had slipped out too easily, carried by a tired smile and the ridiculous sweetness of a child trying to save a stranger. She expected laughter, maybe embarrassment. Instead, the boy nodded like she'd just confirmed something important. "Okay," he said, "then stay close." Outside the thin metal door, a voice rose in irritation. "She's here. I can feel it." Zaria's chest tightened. She glanced toward the door, then back at the boy. "You need to leave," she whispered urgently. "Now, please." Jun Seo didn't move. "They won't come in," he said calmly. Her pulse hammered. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." The certainty in his tone unsettled her more than the voices outside. Before she could respond, the handle rattled once, hard. The door shook slightly under a fist. "Open it," a man barked. "We just want to talk." Zaria pressed herself farther back, breath shallow, already calculating how fast she could bolt if the door gave way. Then, silence. Not the kind that followed retreat, the kind that came when something else had arrived. Footsteps echoed from the front of the building, slow, measured, unhurried. The arguing voices dropped instantly, replaced by murmurs that carried unease instead of anger. June straightened. "Oh," he said quietly, "Daddy's here." Her stomach dropped. Before she could ask what he meant, the voices outside the door faded completely. No shouting, no threats, just the sound of people moving out of the way. The back door opened. Kang Tae-hyun stood in the doorway. He wasn't tall in an exaggerated way, but he filled the space effortlessly, dressed in black from head to toe, his presence heavy and controlled. His face was calm, unreadable, eyes sharp enough to make the room feel smaller. 2 men stood just behind him, silent and alert, their attention already scanning the corners. Tae-hyun's gaze went first to his son. "June," he said, voice low and even. "What are you doing back here?" June smiled, completely unbothered. "I was fixing something." Tae-hyun's eyes shifted then to Zaria. The look wasn't hostile. It wasn't curious either. It was assessing, like he was taking her apart piece by piece and deciding where she fit, if she fit at all. Zaria felt the weight of it in her chest. "She's scared," June continued, tugging lightly on her hand. "So I married her." The words landed, heavily in the quiet room. Tae-hyun's gaze dropped to where his son's fingers were wrapped around hers. Something flickered there, fast enough that Zaria almost missed it. "You did what?" he asked. June puffed out his chest. "She was hiding from bad people. Family is protected, you said so." Tae-hyun didn't respond immediately. He looked back at Zaria, his eyes lingering this time. Not on her face, but on the faint tremor in her hands, the stiffness in her posture. He noticed everything. "Are you hurt?" he asked her directly. She shook her head. "No, I'm fine." A man leaned in and murmured something in Tae-hyun's ear. His expression didn't change. "Take care of it," Tae-hyun said quietly. The man nodded once and stepped away. Zaria didn't hear what happened next. She didn't need to. Whatever danger had chased her into that back room moments earlier was already gone. Tae-hyun crouched slightly in front of his son. "You shouldn't wander off, alone." June frowned. She promised she wouldn't disappear. Tae-hyun looked up at Zaria again. "Did you?" Her throat tightened. "He's a child. I didn't think—" "I know," Tae-hyun said calmly. "So am I." The way he said it sent a chill down her spine. He stood and extended his hand, not demanding, not gentle, expectant. "Come with us," he said. "This place isn't safe." Zaria hesitated. Every instinct she had screamed not to follow powerful men into the unknown. But June squeezed her fingers, looking up at her with unwavering trust. "You said yes," he reminded her softly. She swallowed and took Tae-hyun's hand. The moment she stepped out of that room, the air changed. People along the narrow hallway pressed themselves back against the walls, eyes lowered. No one spoke. No one dared. Outside, a line of black SUVs waited with engines idling. Tae-hyun guided June into the nearest one, then turned back to her. "My name is Kang Tae-hyun," he said. "You'll be safe until we sort this out." Safe. The word felt strange in her mouth. As the door closed and the vehicle pulled away, Zaria watched the building disappear behind them, her heart still racing. She didn't know who Kang Tae-hyun really was yet. She didn't know why grown men feared him without a single threat spoken. She didn't know what it meant to be tied, however lightly, to his son. All she knew was that saying yes to a child's promise had just dragged her into a world that did not forgive mistakes, and there would be a price. The SUV door closed with a muted thud, sealing Zaria Cole inside a world that smelled of leather, clean metal, and quiet control. The engine purred as if it had been waiting all night for this moment. Outside, rain streaked down the tinted windows, blurring the street into streaks of light and shadow. Zaria sat stiffly beside June Seo, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her pulse still hadn't slowed. Every few seconds, she expected the doors to fly open again, for someone to shout, to demand answers, to tell her this was all a mistake. Nothing happened. June swung his legs lightly, humming to himself as if they were on a casual ride home. He leaned closer to her, whispering conspiratorially, "You're really quiet." "I'm thinking," she replied. "Thinking is good," he said with authority far beyond his years. "Daddy says thinking keeps you alive." Her chest tightened. Across from them, Kang Tae-hyun sat with one arm resting casually along the back of the seat, gaze fixed forward. He hadn't spoken since the vehicle started moving. He didn't look at his phone. He didn't fidget. He didn't need to. Zaria could feel him noticing everything anyway. She shifted slightly, aware of how exposed she suddenly felt. Her worn apron, her scuffed shoes, the faint ache still lingering in her ribs from weeks of running and hiding. She wondered how she looked to him. Not beautiful, not impressive, just inconvenient. The SUV turned sharply, then smoothed out onto a wider road. "Where are we going?" she asked before she could stop herself. Tae-hyun glanced at her, just briefly. Somewhere secure. That was it. No explanation, no reassurance, just fact. June leaned forward eagerly. "Can we stop for snacks?" "No," Tae-hyun replied. "Can we stop for snacks later?" A pause. "Maybe." June grinned, satisfied, then leaned against Zaria's side, already growing sleepy. The vehicle slowed at a checkpoint. Zaria heard voices outside, low, respectful. The window rolled down halfway. "Sir." Tae-hyun nodded once. The barrier lifted immediately. Zaria swallowed. She hadn't seen any weapons, no raised voices, no threats. And yet, everything moved when he arrived. Everything obeyed. The SUV drove on. They reached the compound less than 20 minutes later. High walls surrounded the property, not ostentatious but solid, clean lines disappearing into the dark. The gates opened before the SUV fully stopped. Inside, lights glowed warmly, illuminating a modern estate nestled against the hillside. Guards stood at intervals, discreet and silent. This wasn't a mansion meant to impress. It was a place meant to hold. The SUV pulled to a stop under a covered entrance. One of the men from earlier opened the door. "Welcome home, sir." Tae-hyun stepped out first, then reached back for his son. June slid down easily, still holding Zaria's hand. She hesitated. "It's all right," Tae-hyun said quietly, watching her. "No one here will touch you without my permission." The words should have frightened her. Instead, they grounded her. She stepped out. Inside, the house was calm, not silent, alive but controlled. Soft lighting, clean surfaces, no unnecessary decoration. Staff moved efficiently, nodding politely but never staring. Zaria felt painfully out of place. A woman approached, bowing slightly. "Sir." "This is Zaria, Cole," Tae-hyun said. "She'll be staying temporarily." The woman inclined her head to Zaria. "Of course." Zaria opened her mouth to object. Temporarily sounded dangerous, but June squeezed her fingers again. "Come see my room," he said, tugging her forward. "I'll show you where you're safe." Tae-hyun watched them go, his expression unreadable. Later, after June had been settled with a snack he'd negotiated fiercely for, Tae-hyun found Zaria standing alone near a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. She didn't turn when he approached. She felt him before she heard him. "You should sit," he said. "You're still shaking." She looked down, surprised to realize it was true. "I didn't agree to stay," she said carefully. "I didn't agree to any of this." "I know," he replied. "That's why you have choices." She finally turned to face him. "Do I?" "Yes." Something in his tone made her believe him. "For tonight," he continued, "you stay. Tomorrow, we talk." "And the men from earlier?" she asked. "They won't bother you again." Her stomach clenched. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said calmly, "they've been reminded of boundaries." She studied his face, looking for cruelty, for pride, for satisfaction. She found none, just certainty. "You're afraid of me," he said, not unkindly. "I don't know you," she replied honestly. "That's wiser." She laughed softly despite herself. "Your son thinks I'm his wife." Tae-hyun's mouth twitched almost imperceptibly. "He has an active imagination. He's serious." "Yes, and you're not correcting him." "Not yet," Zaria frowned. "Why?" Tae-hyun held her gaze. "Because right now believing you belong gives him peace." Her chest tightened. She hadn't expected that answer. "You don't owe him that," he added. "You don't owe us anything." "That's not what it feels like." "Feelings aren't contracts," he said. "I am." She didn't know what that meant, but it sounded like a warning. That night, Zarya slept in a guest room larger than her entire apartment. The bed was soft. The sheets smelled clean. Too clean. She didn't sleep much. Every sound startled her. Every shadow made her tense. She kept replaying the moment Tae-hyun had entered that back room, the way everything had stopped. In the morning, sunlight streamed through the windows. Someone knocked gently. Breakfast was waiting. June barreled into her halfway down the hallway, throwing his arms around her waist. "You didn't leave." "No," she said softly. "I didn't." "Good," he said. "I told Daddy you wouldn't." At breakfast, Tae-hyun sat across from them, sipping coffee. He watched June chatter animatedly about school, doctors, and dragons. Zarya noticed how he listened, really listened, without interrupting, without dismissing. When June finished and dashed off to play, Tae-hyun folded his hands. "We need to set rules," he said. Her shoulders stiffened. "Rules?" "Yes, for your safety, and his." She nodded slowly. "You stay on the property unless escorted," he continued. "You don't answer unknown calls. You don't give interviews. You don't post online." I know," he said. "These are precautions. And my job. You won't be returning there." She bristled. "I need to work. You need to live." "I don't take charity." His gaze sharpened slightly. "Neither do I. If you want work, we'll find something appropriate." She crossed her arms. "You're very confident." "I don't gamble with my son's life." That stopped her. "What does that mean?" she asked quietly. Tae-hyun exhaled slowly. "June is vulnerable. People use vulnerabilities." Her mind flashed to the men from the night before, to Malik, to all the ways people had tried to claim pieces of her. "You're protecting him," she said. "Yes." "And me." A pause. "For now," he answered honestly. It should have angered her. Instead, she respected it. "Why help me at all?" she asked. "You don't know me." Tae-hyun stood. "Because my son chose you." He walked away, leaving her staring after him, heart unsettled. Later that day, she learned what protection really meant. Her phone buzzed once. A single message from Malik. "Where are you?" Before she could reply, the phone went dark. That evening, Tae-hyun informed her calmly, "Your cousin attempted to access you." And he was unsuccessful. Her hands trembled. "What did you do?" "I removed the incentive." That was all. Zarya went to bed that night understanding one thing with terrifying clarity. Whatever Kang Tae-hyun was, whatever power he held, he was already using it for her. Zarya Cole learned the rhythm of the house slowly, not because it was complicated, but because it was precise. Every movement had purpose. Every person knew where to be without being told twice. It reminded her uncomfortably of places where mistakes were not corrected. They were eliminated. She stayed mostly in the guest wing during the first 2 days, unsure of where she was allowed to exist without being noticed. The staff were polite but distant, answering her questions with efficiency and nothing more. They didn't ask where she was from. They didn't ask why she was there. They already knew better. June, however, did not believe in distance. He appeared at her door the second morning with a wide grin and a plastic dinosaur clutched in one hand. "Good morning, wife," he announced proudly. Zarya blinked at him, still half asleep. "Good morning. Night," he beamed. "You didn't forget." "Hard to forget," she said, sitting up. "You're very loud." "That's because I'm alive," he replied cheerfully, then climbed onto the edge of her bed without asking. "Daddy says quiet people live longer, but loud people live happier." She laughed softly despite herself. "Your dad says a lot of things." Yes, June agreed seriously, but he listens to me. That gave her pause. Breakfast became a routine she hadn't known she'd missed. June insisted she sit beside him. He refused to eat until she took the first bite, explaining solemnly that sharing food makes you family. When she tried to argue, Tae-hyun had merely lifted his gaze and said, "Let him." So she stayed. She cut his food into small pieces. He talked non-stop about school, about dragons, about how doctors were liars who pretended needles didn't hurt. She listened, really listened. And somewhere between his exaggerated stories and the way he watched her face for reactions, she realized something terrifying. He trusted her. Tae-hyun sat across from them most mornings, quiet, coffee untouched, until June finished eating. He rarely spoke unless spoken to, but when he did, his words carried weight without effort. Zarya noticed the details before she noticed him. The way his gaze flicked to the door whenever June laughed too loudly. The way he adjusted the chair before June climbed onto it. The way his shoulders eased, just slightly, when June leaned against her instead of him. It felt intimate in a way she didn't have language for yet. One afternoon, while June napped, Zarya wandered into the small library tucked behind the main living area. The shelves were lined with books she didn't expect. Children's stories mixed with dense volumes on history, strategy, and medicine. She was flipping through a worn picture book when Tae-hyun appeared at the doorway. "June likes that one," he said. She startled slightly. "Sorry, I didn't mean to—" "You're allowed," he interrupted calmly. She closed the book. "He's smart." "He's observant," Tae-hyun corrected. "That's different." "He sees more than most adults I know." "Yes," he said simply. She hesitated, then asked, "Does that scare you?" His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. "Every day." That honesty surprised her. "You don't talk about him like he's fragile," she said. "He isn't," Tae-hyun replied. "He's resilient. The world is not." The silence stretched comfortably between them. Not awkward, not heavy, just present. Later that evening, June insisted they play a board game. Zarya had never heard of it, and Tae-hyun claimed ignorance as well, but June declared himself the expert and made up rules as he went. "You're cheating," Zarya accused lightly. "I'm winning," June corrected. Tae-hyun watched them from across the table, arms folded, expression unreadable. When June inevitably lost and declared the game unfair, Tae-hyun reached out and slid the pieces back into place. "Again," he said. June's eyes lit up. Zarya caught the briefest hint of a smile on Tae-hyun's lips before it disappeared. That night, she lay awake thinking about it. Days passed. June grew bolder with her. He asked her to walk him to his lessons, to sit beside him during medical checkups, to stay close when his chest hurt and fear crept into his eyes. She learned how to distract him. Songs, silly stories, counting the tiles on the ceiling. She learned his tells, the way his fingers curled when pain started, the way his voice dropped when he was scared, the way he searched for Tae-hyun instinctively, even when pretending not to. Zarya found herself doing the same. She didn't know when it happened, only that she started noticing whether Tae-hyun was in the room before she spoke, that she felt calmer when his presence anchored the space. They talked more, small things at first. Her childhood, his time abroad, why he preferred tea to coffee at night. He never spoke about his work unless necessary. She never asked. Some boundaries were understood without being discussed. One evening, after June fell asleep on the couch with his head on her lap, Tae-hyun draped a blanket over him gently. "You don't have to stay," he said quietly. She looked down at the boy's peaceful face. I know. You can leave whenever you want. I know, he studied her. Why haven't you? The question settled between them. Because he needs someone who isn't afraid of him, she said softly. And because you look like you haven't slept properly in years. Something about that made his jaw tighten. You're observant, he said. I learned to be, she replied. Later that night, she found him in the kitchen long past midnight, standing by the window, city lights reflecting faintly in his eyes. Can't sleep? She asked. No, me neither. They stood there, not touching, not speaking for a long moment. You don't belong here, Tae-hyun said eventually. I know. And yet, he continued, you fit. She turned to look at him. That sounds like a problem. For me, he admitted. The honesty in his voice unsettled her more than anger would have. I didn't come here to change your life, she said. I know. And I'm not staying because of money or protection. I know. She exhaled slowly. Then why does it feel like everything is shifting? Tae-hyun looked at her then, really looked. Because you've become important. The word landed heavily. Not love, not need. Important. It felt more dangerous than all of it. June woke that night crying from pain. Zaria reached him first, holding him until his breathing steadied. Tae-hyun stood in the doorway watching them, his face shadowed with fear he didn't bother to hide. You're okay, Zaria whispered to June. I've got you. June nodded weakly. You always do. After the doctors left and the house settled again, Tae-hyun spoke quietly. He listens to you. I don't try to make him brave, she replied. I just stay. He nodded once. That's rarer than courage. Their eyes met in the dim hallway. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then June shifted in her arms, murmuring her name, and the moment passed. But it didn't disappear. It lingered, and both of them felt it. Zaria Cole first realized something was wrong when the staff stopped meeting her eyes. It wasn't obvious. Nothing dramatic. Just small shifts she'd learned to notice over years of surviving unstable places. Conversations that paused when she entered a room. Phones that were silenced a little too quickly. Guards repositioning without explanation. Even June sensed it. They're whispering, he said one afternoon, coloring carefully at the dining table. Daddy's people whisper when bad things are coming. Zaria's chest tightened. What kind of bad things? The annoying kind, Aini, he replied solemnly. Not the scary ones. That didn't reassure her. Tae-hyun didn't say anything at first. He remained calm, controlled, exactly as he always was. But Zaria noticed the change in his schedule. Longer meetings, more calls taken behind closed doors. Security tightened quietly around the property. The outside world was pressing in. It started with rumors. A photo surfaced online, grainy, taken from across the street, the night she'd been taken from the food stall. It showed her stepping into the SUV. Another followed, then another, always distant, always unclear, but speculation didn't need clarity. By the third day, a name appeared in an anonymous post. Kang Tae-hyun, seen escorting mystery woman. Possible weakness? Zaria found out by accident, scrolling on a tablet June had abandoned on the couch. Her stomach dropped. She hadn't thought about what it meant to be seen beside someone like him. She hadn't considered that her presence wasn't neutral. In his world, proximity was power, and vulnerability. She closed the browser quickly, heart pounding. That evening, Tae-hyun asked her to join him in the study. The room was spare. A large desk, a single lamp, no personal photos, nothing that suggested softness. He gestured for her to sit. "There's been a tension," he said calmly. "I noticed," she replied. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause—" "You didn't," he cut in. "But the situation has changed." She folded her hands together. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that people are asking questions," he said. "And in my world, questions turn into leverage." Her throat tightened. "About June?" "Yes." The word settled heavily between them. She stood abruptly. "Then I should leave." Tae-hyun's gaze sharpened. "No. You said I had choices." "You do," he said evenly. "But leaving right now would put a target on your back. And his." She swallowed. "So what happens now?" He leaned back slightly, studying her. "We control the narrative." She frowned. "What narrative?" Tae-hyun was silent for a moment. "An engagement," he said finally. The word hit her like cold water. "What?" "A public one," he clarified. "Temporary." Zarya stared at him. "You want to fake being engaged to me?" "I want to remove uncertainty," he replied. "People hesitate when they believe something is settled." She laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "This is insane." "Yes," he agreed calmly, "but it's effective." She paced the room, emotions colliding. "I didn't sign up for this. I didn't come here to pretend." "I know," he said quietly. "This is not for appearances. This is for protection." She stopped pacing. "For who?" "For you," he said. "For June." She looked away, heart racing. "And after?" she asked. "After things settle," he said. "You walk away, cleanly, with whatever you need." She turned back to him. "And what? About what people think of me?" "I won't allow you to be disrespected." The certainty in his voice unsettled her. June burst into the room moments later, clearly eavesdropping. "Are we having a wedding?" Zarya's breath caught. "No." "Yes," Tae-hyun said calmly. She stared at him. "You said temporary." "It is," he replied. "But he doesn't need to know that." June's face lit up. "I knew it. I told everyone she was my wife." Zarya knelt in front of him, forcing a smile she didn't fully feel. "This doesn't mean—" "It means you stay," June interrupted, hugging her tightly. "That's all I want." Her chest ached. She looked up at Tae-hyun. "You're using him." "No," he said firmly. "I'm protecting him." "And me?" A pause. "Yes," he said quietly. "You too." The announcement didn't come with fanfare. It came quietly, deliberately, through controlled channels. A statement released through trusted and intermediaries. No interviews, no questions. Kang Tae-hyun confirms engagement. Requests privacy for his family. Family. The word echoed in Zarya's head long after she read it. Public reaction was immediate. Shock, speculation, disbelief. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why her? Photos multiplied. Her face appeared on screens she'd never imagined. Comment sections turned vicious within hours. Gold digger, distraction, mistake. Zarya stopped reading after the first few minutes. That night, Tae-hyun found her standing alone on the balcony, city lights flickering below. "You shouldn't read those," he said. "I didn't," she lied. He didn't call her out. "This will pass," he said. "It always does." She wrapped her arms around herself. "You sound sure." "I am." "Because you've done this before?" "No," he replied. "Because I know how people move when they don't matter." She turned to him. "And do I matter?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. His gaze held hers steadily. "Yes." The simplicity of the answer stole her breath. Inside, June was already telling the staff about the wedding, planning imaginary cake flavors, and assigning roles with absolute authority. Zarya watched him through the glass, smiling despite the knot in her chest. She had stepped into something irreversible. And if you're just joining this story, now would be the perfect time to pause for a moment. Like, subscribe and share, because what's coming next changes everything for them. Behind her, Tae-hyun spoke softly. "This doesn't have to be forever," he said. She didn't answer, because the most frightening part wasn't pretending to be engaged. It was the way it was starting to feel real. The first crack came quietly. Zarya noticed it in the way Tae-hyun stopped sleeping. He still woke early, still attended meetings, still spoke in the same measured tone that made men listen and rooms obey. But at night, when the house settled and June slept, Zarya sometimes found him standing alone by the windows, city lights reflected in his eyes, like something he couldn't outrun. "You should rest," she said once, passing him in the hallway near midnight. "I will," he replied. He didn't. June felt it too. "Daddy's tired," he whispered one morning as Zarya helped him button his shirt. "When Daddy gets tired, bad things try to come back." Her chest tightened. "Nothing bad is coming." June studied her face carefully. "You're lying nicer than usual." She smiled weakly. "You're too smart." "Yes," he agreed. "That's what Daddy says right before he tells me something scary." The pressure outside the house was growing. The engagement announcement had done what Tae-hyun intended. It stalled the rumors, froze speculation into something solid, but it also shifted attention. Curiosity turned sharper. Interest deepened. People wanted leverage. And Zarya was visible now. The first message came from a number she didn't recognize. "You clean up well." She deleted it immediately. The second came an hour later. "Funny how fast people forget where you came from." Her stomach dropped. She didn't respond. She didn't tell Tae-hyun. She should have. By the third day, the messages stopped. That was worse. It happened late afternoon. Zarya was in the garden with June, watching him build an elaborate fortress out of stones and fallen leaves. He was humming under his breath, content, focused. "You're guarding the door wrong," she teased gently. "No, I'm not," he said. "This one is for monsters." She laughed. "What kind of monsters?" "The quiet kind," he replied seriously. "The ones that wait." Her smile faded. That was when the sound cut through the air. Not shouting, not gunfire. Sirens. Distant but approaching. June froze. Zarya stood slowly. "It's okay," she said, though her heart had already begun to race. Security moved instantly, calm, efficient. 2 guards stepped into the garden without panic. "Miss Cole," one said politely, "we need to move inside." "Why?" she asked. "Just a precaution." June clutched her hand. "Where's Daddy?" "He's on his way." The sirens grew louder. Minutes later, Tae-hyun entered the room, jacket off, sleeves rolled, jaw set tight in a way Zarya had never seen before. "What happened?" she asked. He didn't answer her immediately. He knelt in front of June instead. "Did anyone speak to you today?" he asked his son calmly. June shook his head. "Just the nurse and Zarya." Tae-hyun nodded once. "Good." He stood, turning to Zarya. "Come with me." The study felt colder than before. Tae-hyun closed the door behind them. The silence was thick. "Someone tried to access you," he said. Her breath caught. "Tried how?" "Through your past," he replied. "And through him." Her heart slammed. "June?" "No," he said quickly. "Indirectly." She swallowed hard. "Tell me." He exhaled slowly. "Your cousin. Malik Cole." The name hit her like a slap. "I told you he was dangerous," she said. "I told you. He approached one of my rivals," Tae-hyun continued evenly. "Offered information, photos, stories, suggested that destabilizing my personal life would weaken my position. Her legs felt weak. She gripped the back of a chair. What did he want? A payout, Tae-hyun said, and leverage. And did he get it? No. Her relief was short-lived. What did you do? She asked quietly. Tae-hyun met her gaze. I made sure he can't reach you again. The way he said it, final, unembellished, made her chest tighten with fear. You promised I wouldn't be a problem, she whispered. You're not, he said sharply. I am, she insisted. This is happening because of me. No, he snapped. This is happening because people don't respect boundaries. And because I exist, she shot back. Silence slammed down between them. For the first time since she'd known him, Tae-hyun looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. I warned you, he said quietly. This world takes everything it can reach. And yet you pulled me into it, she replied. I pulled you away from worse, he said. Did you? She asked, voice shaking. Because now June is involved. Now his life is a chess piece. His jaw clenched. Do not put this on him. I didn't, she said. You did, when you made me visible. He took a step toward her. You think I don't know the risk? Then why are we still doing this? She demanded. Why not end it now before it costs him more? The words hung between them, heavy and dangerous. Because ending it now would be a weakness, Tae-hyun said. There it was, the truth. She stared at him. So this isn't about protection anymore. It is, he said firmly. But protection has layers. She laughed bitterly. You sound like you're justifying this to yourself. His eyes darkened. You think this is easy for me? I think you're used to choosing power over people. The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Tae-hyun went still. When he spoke again, his voice was low and controlled, too controlled. You don't know what I've chosen, he said, and you don't know what it cost. June's voice echoed faintly from the hallway. Zaria? Her heart cracked. She turned toward the door, but Tae-hyun stopped her. Stay, he said. No, she replied softly. This ends now. She pushed past him. June stood outside, eyes wide with fear. They said I have to stay inside, he whispered. Did I do something wrong? Zaria dropped to her knees in front of him immediately. No, baby, never. He wrapped his arms around her neck. Please, don't go. Her chest burned. I'm not leaving you, she said. I just need to fix something. She looked up at Tae-hyun, standing rigid in the doorway. I can't stay like this, she said. Not if my presence puts him in danger. You're not the danger, he said. I don't believe you, she replied. That night Zaria packed. Not everything, just enough. June cried quietly while she hugged him, promising she would come back, promising she wouldn't disappear. Tae-hyun watched from the doorway, silent. When she finally turned to him, tears streaking her face, she said the words that broke them both. I can't be the thing they use against you. He didn't stop her. That was the worst part. As the car pulled away from the compound, Zaria pressed her forehead to the glass, heart shattering. Inside the house, June screamed for her. And for the first time since he'd built his empire, Kang Tae-hyun realized something terrifying. Power couldn't protect him from loss. Zaria Cole didn't sleep the night she left. She sat in the back seat of the car Tae-hyun had ordered for her, hands folded in her lap, staring at the city lights as they blurred past the window. Every mile felt like a betrayal. Every breath felt borrowed. Her phone buzzed once, then again. She didn't answer, because if she heard June's voice, she wouldn't make it another block. Behind her, the compound fell silent. Kang Tae-hyun stood in the center of the empty living room long after the doors closed. June's cries echoed down the hallway, raw and panicked, a sound that cut deeper than any threat ever had. "She promised," June sobbed, fists clenched in his blankets. "She said she wouldn't disappear." Tae-hyun sat beside his son's bed, one hand resting on the small rise of June's chest, steadying himself by the rhythm of it. "She didn't disappear," he said quietly. "She stepped back." "But why?" June demanded. "Did I do something wrong?" Tae-hyun's jaw tightened. "No." "Then why didn't you stop her?" The question hit where no blade ever could. Because he hadn't. Because power had taught him how to control the world, but not how to beg someone to stay. "I made a mistake," Tae-hyun said finally. June turned to him, eyes red and wet. "Then fix it." At dawn, Tae-hyun made a call he had avoided for years. By noon, the city began to hum. Not with rumors, with certainty. The first announcement dropped quietly, but it landed like an earthquake. Kang Tae-hyun to appear publicly with fiancé after days of speculation. Then another. Kang Group launches Kang Family Foundation, Child Medical Protection Initiative. The final one sealed it. All allegations against Zaria Cole proven false. Multiple arrests made in connection with attempted extortion and information trafficking. Zaria saw the headlines from a small apartment she'd barely unpacked. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. She didn't answer. Not until a knock sounded at her door. She froze, then opened it. Tae-hyun stood there alone. No guards, no entourage, no armor. Just a man who looked like he hadn't slept, eyes stripped bare of control. "You shouldn't be here," she said weakly. "I should have been here sooner," he replied. She stepped back instinctively. "You said letting me go was necessary." "I was wrong," he said simply. The honesty stunned her. "They used you," he continued, "and I let them think it worked." Her heart pounded. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, holding her gaze, "they showed themselves." He handed her his phone. On the screen, names, statements, arrest records. Malik Cole's face frozen in a booking photo, eyes wide with disbelief. Others followed, brokers, fixers, men who thought they could trade her like currency. "They won't touch you again," Tae-hyun said. "Not privately, not publicly." She swallowed. "And June?" Tae-hyun's voice cracked. "He hasn't spoken since you left." That broke her. "I never wanted to hurt him," she whispered. "I know," Tae-hyun said. "That's why he chose you." She looked up sharply. "What?" "He told me," Tae-hyun continued. "He said brave people don't run from danger. They protect what matters. He said you did that." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I didn't choose power," Tae-hyun said. "I chose fear, and I almost lost both of you." He stepped closer, not touching, waiting. "I love you," he said, "not because you make my life softer, but because you made it honest." Zaria closed her eyes. "June needs you," he added softly. "And so do I." She opened them again. "Then don't hide me," she said. "Don't protect me in shadows. I won't. Stand with me, in the light." His answer was immediate. "Always." The press conference was nothing like the rumors expected. No spectacle. No threats. Just truth. Zaria stood beside Tae-hyun on the stage, dressed simply, head held high. The room buzzed with anticipation, then fell silent as he spoke. "My family was targeted," Tae-hyun said calmly. "Not because they were weak, but because others mistook silence for permission." He reached for Zaria's hand. "This is Zaria Cole, my fiancée." Any attempt to discredit her was an attempt to reach my son. Cameras flashed. And those responsible, he continued, are now answering for it. The questions came fast. Why her? Why now? Is this real? Tae-hyun answered only one. Yes, he said. It's real. In the front row, June sat between two aides wearing a small suit and the biggest smile in the room. She came back, he whispered proudly to no one in particular. That night, the city celebrated quietly. Deals collapsed. Rivals disappeared. Power shifted. But inside the compound, something gentler unfolded. Zarya found June in the garden, sitting cross-legged on the grass. You left, he said, without accusation. I did, she replied softly. And I'm sorry. He studied her face carefully. Are you leaving again? She shook her head. No. Promise? She knelt in front of him, pressing her hand over his chest. I promise. He hugged her fiercely. Good, because I already told everyone you're my mom. Her breath caught. Tae-hyun watched from a few steps away, eyes shining. Later, under soft lights strung across the terrace, Tae-hyun took her hands. No more pretending, he said. No more temporary. He lowered himself onto one knee. Zarya Cole, you walked into my life through fear and stayed through courage. Marry me, not for protection, not for appearances, but because we chose each other. She didn't hesitate. Yes, June whooped loudly. I knew it. Laughter broke through tears. Applause followed, not from crowds, but from the people who mattered. Weeks later, headlines moved on, but one image remained. Zarya, Tae-hyun, and June walking hand in hand through the city, unafraid, unhidden, unbroken. A family, built not on power, but on choice. And if you stayed with this story until the very end, thank you. If it moved you, surprised you, or made you believe in second chances, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment below. Because your support keeps stories like this alive. Until next time.